It's urban warfare, or fashion warfare.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's why we're recording?
Okey-doke.
All right. Ready? Okay.
Ready?
We do a little cook.
Our first question is, how did you come up with the name of 10-car pileup?
I was on my third divorce, fifth child, and me being in the most stable of professions. Get it?
10-car pileup.
A lot going on. And I've been in the garment industry a very long time. But after my third divorce, I decided I had to do something close to home. And I didn't expect to be here for as long as I have been.
What do you think contributed to the longevity of your shop?
I think I enjoyed it. I think it was fun. I mean, I'd been in the garment industry a long time, had definitely been a fan of vintage clothing. But at that time, vintage shops for me were a sort of a financial windfall. You got a better value if you bought used clothes. And older clothes to me were made better. And from me being in the garment industry, it was a fun thing to go out and try to find unusual things. And for the people, it was always a rare breed that shopped vintage shops, you know, but it was always a financial consideration first and foremost. Unfortunately, or fortunately, once the internet got in it, it leveled the playing field for everybody.
Who would you consider as your top clientele?
8 to 80. It's actually very diverse. It's, I mean, a lot of people think it's all college kids, but it really isn't, especially for me in the last 15 or so years. College kids, but I think that's where it started with college kids because they didn't have a lot of money. So it was a better value to go out there and buy used clothes. Once the internet got into it and it leveled that playing field, things got very expensive.
What do you think, or how do you separate vintage stores from the new age of fast fashion?
Well, I will tell you this, I prefer customers that know what they're buying. I mean, there's a lot of people that will jump on trends, you know, but the thing is that you can be part of a trend, but you can't start it. And I always considered most of the people that, especially younger people that get into my stuff, I looked at them as the ruling class of fashion.
What inspired you to be a vintage owner and collector?
I've been in the garment industry my entire life. I started working when I was 15 years old for a traditional haberdashery. It was back when clothing was actually tailored on the premise. I got to, I guess, by default, I got to learn a lot about clothing.
Do you think that you have any pieces here that are like potentially haunted or something like with a really great story?
Have you ever heard of Divine, female impersonator? If you look at that t-shirt, she had the very first, then I don't even think they call them vintage shops, resale shop. That's where I went, my first vintage shop was in his place. It was down on Reed Street in Baltimore. And what it was is that back in the late 60s, early 70s, he was definitely in the minority as far as female impersonators. And back in those days, you couldn't go into a department store and try on women's clothes without getting arrested. And so he was basically selling used clothes to his friends that were in that world. But once he became famous for his plays and all that kind of stuff, he ended up shutting his shop down.